I am Oliver Houck. I'm a professor here at the law school. But I must say that I've attended each of the sessions I could today with a terrible feeling I missed others that were just exciting and important. And I wonder whether you share that, you know? You could come here and attend one each slot and then come back the next day and take the other slot. And so it goes. That's done deliberately, but it is tantalizing. We call it Jazz Fest. You're just torn between, you know, the Grateful Dead and Janis Joplin. And so it goes. I have the high honor, it is an honor, we're all honored in a way, to introduce a man who needs a lot less introduction than I do, Jean-Michel Cousteau. This is the second time I've had the opportunity to do this at Tulane. The first one proved impossible, and the reasons are quite relevant to what I'm saying and not saying today. Early in the 1980s, Jacques Cousteau and his son Jean-Michel came to Tulane to give a presentation at the largest auditorium on campus called McAllister Hall. I was away in Boston, but I got a call. We need an environmentalist to introduce him. There was not another environmentalist on campus. In fact, we didn't even use the word in 1983. Conservationists is what we call it. Environmentalists were communists. And so am I, apparently. But when I get the call, I say sure, and I hop the flight. It's a red eye. And I'm coming down, and then I have to lay over at an airport, and I spent the entire time down, 12 hours, preparing my speech. It goes from 10 pages to 5 pages to 3 pages to 2 pages to the back of an envelope. I got it all down. And when I get to McAllister Hall that evening, it's 6 o'clock for a 7 o'clock presentation. McAllister Hall couldn't take one more sardine. It's full to the ceiling. The doors were open and people were out on the steps and down into the street. They were at the open windows, just listening for the man to speak and his son. That should have given me a clue. They were not there for me. And so for the next hour, we went behind the curtain and talked, and I had one of the most fascinating impromptu conversations I've ever had. Happy to relate that at another time, but Jacques Cousteau had been instrumental in the first international declaration on the environment, the most famous of them all, the Stockholm Convention of '72. And he blackmailed it. It's incredible what he did. He was part of the French delegation, and they were getting so political, they had mamby-pamby things to say and do, so he resigned. And he set up his own conference on the spot of all the NGOs who were attending, and they had a UN conference. And their schedule paralleled the official schedule 1 day in advance of each subject. So if on Tuesday the subject was to be marine pollution, the Cousteau crowd would have their resolution on marine pollution Monday evening. And that would then become the agenda for the next. And if the politicians didn't do what the Cousteau conference did, well, why not? So the default switched. And he leveraged that convention into some very strong language. While we're talking about this, I get the umbrella, the hook. I'm to go out and introduce them. I go out into a battery of lights. There's a lectern like this. I cannot see beyond, but I feel this sea of animals and beasts out there in the dark. And the murmur is very strong. And I begin, understand I've got this thing down. And I say, good evening. I don't even get evening out. I get good. And there's this explosion. There's a roar. It's like the Beatles. And I turn around, and out comes Jacques Cousteau and his son. I couldn't hear myself say good evening. And I'm sure no one else could either. And I realized I was quite superfluous they were standing and cheering, and not for me. So I just gestured in their direction, and my great introduction of Jacques and Jean-Michel was over. So I've learned from that today. And I will not try to do anything as elaborate, but I do want to say this, that if anyone has ever fulfilled the dream of a famous father, and so many people who have famous parents don't, it's Jean-Michel. I mean, think about what Jacques Cousteau did, is he introduced the world to the living ocean. Everybody else thought the ocean was just a place you floated boats and spilled oil, but catch fish. But he was the living ocean, and it was also the sense of urgency, right? Urgency. And that was that's where he left off. And then you come to Jean-Michel, and with an architect background and the kind of sort of do-it, almost engineering mentality, added to the charisma of his father and that energy. So he just takes it to a new level of new organizations for the ocean, new projects for the ocean. And I must say that wherever Jacques Cousteau is, he's just smiling from ear to ear. Think of the ambition of what Jean-Michel is up to. You've heard of river keepers. We have more than 100 river keepers in America. There are about 50 in the UK. They're now around the world, each for their little river, or the big river, the Mississippi. Think about the ambition of the ocean. You're the ocean keeper. And I think that's what Jean-Michel is. He's the ocean keeper, the ocean conscience, the ocean doer, and the ocean keeper. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. What I know now is neither can you. And therefore, it's up to me to do no more than introduce him with enormous pleasure, gratitude that he's here, and gratitude that he's doing what he's doing. So, without more, thank you very much, and I give you.
Well, I'm a little embarrassed, but I'm very touched. And I want to thank you very much. I want to thank you very much because I was here, as you said, 30-some years ago, and I happen to have children who have grown. They are divers. My son started when he was 4. And my daughter is very much involved in the environment. So I hope that in 30 years from now, they will come here and you will present them. Is that okay? Good. Look forward to that. And if there's anything that you don't like, you have to blame somebody. And because it's his fault if I'm here, Don Bauer over there. He has been unbelievably helpful to the work that my colleagues and we've done, and that was to release an orca, which was the star of the movie Free Willy. And Free Willy was never released except on the film, typical of Hollywood. And it took us 4.5 years, ultimately, to get Willy out of jail, where he was up in Mexico City. And we took him down to Oregon. He was there for 2 years. And then we took him to Iceland, where he had been captured when he was less than 2 years old, away from his mother. And we were able, thanks to the United States Air Force, to fly Willy, whose real name is Keiko, and Keiko in Mexico had a skin disease. He was underweight. He was in artificial salt water. He was eating frozen fish. And ultimately, when he was in Oregon, he learned about to be no longer doing exercise and catching real fish, which he had never done before. He thought they were toys. And then ultimately realized, ooh, yum, yum, yum. And that's when the Air Force allowed us to take him all the way to where he had been captured. And ultimately, and I was there with my better half on a Sunday at 5 o'clock when he was playing with all his friends that he had learned to be associated with, and he took off and he went to Norway on his own. That was freedom. And you know, today we have an exception, and I'm so glad I went to some of the presentations. I wish I had another brain to put it in other presentations I could not attend. I wanted to be at all of them, and unfortunately I couldn't do that. We have huge opportunities, and the decision makers of tomorrow, many of them are sitting in this room today. And thanks to schools, thanks to education, thanks to what I call the communication revolution that we experience on the planet today, where every human being is connected to each other. 7.8 billion people. I was in India not very long ago, and I was speaking to some of the people in a room where there were 100 poor people who were asking questions to one gentleman who had a computer. And their questions were not about India, it was about the rest of the planet. We're all connected to each other. There's one human species on the planet. There are no more borders. It's a very exciting time. It's just like animals. It's just like in the ocean. And diversity is synonymous of stability. And thanks to the fact that in our species, we are very diverse. Whether it's religion, colors, languages, who cares? It's an exciting time. And for me, meeting people all the way as I travel the planet, having this immense privilege, is formidable. And sharing that information with anyone is a privilege for me, because I know we're going to make it. We're the only species on the planet that has the privilege to decide not to disappear. There's no other species that can say that. It's our job. We showed up not very long ago, and we can disappear. Nature will keep going on without us. It's our choice. And I'm totally convinced today, more than ever, and I could not have said that when I was with my dad 30 years ago. We are going to make it. But it's a big job. We have to make sure starving people can be educated after we feed them. And we have to make sure that education is being shared with every human being, because the decision makers will be making much, much better decisions, young people, than I was making when I was your age. Because I didn't know, but now, fortunately, I know. And thanks to my dad, who put a tank on my back when I was 7 years of age and pushed me overboard, and I became a scuba diver. My late brother was 4.5. My mother was there. Every weekend we would go scuba diving, and we were discovering a little bit of what is happening in almost 70% of the planet, the ocean, where today there are thousands and thousands of species yet to be discovered. And my dad kept telling me, Jean-Michel, people protect what they love. And I kept telling him, how can you protect what you don't understand? And we are there today. We've explored 5 to 10% of the ocean. And you know, it's an exciting time. And that's why I want to share with you a little bit of the history and then go on with reality and where we are today and the opportunities for the future. We're living a very, very exciting time. And for me, after 73 years of scuba diving, I'm going to celebrate that very soon. There's a wonderful lady who owns a whale-watching vessel in Santa Barbara, and she'd say, Jean-Michel, for your birthday, that's your boat. And we're going to go whale-watching. We're going to see several species of whales and the dolphins for a day. We're going to be out there. And celebrate the fact that we worked a little bit, and some of you know some of that, with the United States Navy, because there are very important time where the whales come in that region in front of, north of Los Angeles and around Santa Barbara and so on. And I've been there for 25 years. I was in Los Angeles before that. And I can tell you, I am excited because the Navy has decided when the whales are there, they're no longer emitting their way of identifying potential enemy submarine coming from across the Pacific, and which normally really affect the marine mammals because of the sounds that are emitted underwater, which travels great distances, and they've agreed not to do it at that time. We are able to sit down. Never point a finger at anybody. There's 3 fingers pointing at you. Try to reach the heart. Everybody has one. And that's how we were able to sit down with President Bush, who is deep into the oil in Texas, and he created the largest marine protected area in the United States, the northwestern Hawaiian Island, 1,200 miles long. And President Obama, a year and a half ago, he went and he wanted to see what President Bush had done. He flew, he took a plane from Hawaii and he went all the way back and forth. And he came back and he multiplied what President Bush had done by 4 times, the largest marine protected area on the planet today. Republican, Democrat, agreeing on protecting our life support system. Yay! Exciting! Because you don't criticize, you help. These people have a short-term obligations, whether it's industries or governments, making money now or being re-elected. But they have families, they have children, they have grandchildren, they care about the future, just like I do, and that's why I'm so excited with my grandson, that was my daughter's decision, born underwater, and I'm having fun with him, except at night, takes all his toys and throw them in a pool or in the ocean, and I have to go and get them. So I tell his mother, hey, it's your problem. Having a lot of fun. We know, we're living a very exciting time, and I have to give a lot of credit, thanks to the gentleman who so kindly talked about my dad and the impact that he has had on a lot of people on the planet. I want to give him a little bit of credit. So if we can have the first DVD, thanks to your help, I would really appreciate that. And when the sound is good, if the sound is good, I will shut up.
Before the aqualung and the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau, the ocean was a realm reserved mostly for the military, science, weathermen, cargo ships, and those lucky enough to sail it for pleasure. In general, the world stood at the shore and gazed at the endless water and waves of the surface, dreaming of monsters, island escapes, or the lumbering equipment it took to get to sunken treasure. The insatiable curiosity and pioneering inventions of my father changed everything. From how we work in the sea to our fuller understanding of the sea's role in sustaining life as we know it, to an environmental movement still struggling to be heard. The smiling Frenchman with his cameras first charmed us, then he warned us, and we've never been the same.
Now we need a more active army of people who love the sea, understand that there was no life without water, and that we have to put all our efforts in saving whatever can be done for the future generations.
My father broke barriers twice. First with his newly invented aqualung and underwater cameras, when he entered the sea and changed our perception of the very nature of our planet. And then again, as he continued to make sense of this new world and predicted the disaster of what we have done to it.
What we are facing is the destruction of the ocean by pollution and by other causes. If nothing was done today, maybe 30, 40, 50 years would be the end of everything.
Part of the greatness of my father's legacy is that the beauty of the sea is such a part of our understanding that we now take it for granted. But we ignored his predictions of where we were headed if we didn't change. He claimed we had no choice but to engage in the battle to protect the sea and a warming planet. He warned us 40 years ago. On the 100th anniversary of my father's birth, we explore the deeper adventure of how he changed the world and the lives of the people he touched, and what his heirs to the legacy are trying to achieve.
That was a very exciting time, and I'm happy to say that since then a lot has changed. We are learning a lot, and I want to show you in a very, very small time, although I could do many minutes, but I want to show you where we're going now. Because we've explored so little. And as a diver, I love to dive, and that's how I continue to be recharged all the time. And when people ask me, what's your best dive? I always tell them, the next one. Because I always see things I've never seen before, whether it's new species or behavior and so on. But I'm limited on how deep I can go. Now, thanks to a critical, very creative gentleman in Canada, in Vancouver, Phil Newton, he invited me to be certified with a bunch of people who were invited from New York, because in New York, Manhattan, they were losing 30 to 40% of the fresh water that is going into the city to feed people. And they are in long underwater tubes or tunnels, and sometimes half a mile or whatever. And he said, we need to find out why we're losing all that water. And they created a piece of equipment which is called the exosuit. And I told Phil, I said, Phil, you can't send one, because if he has a problem about half a mile into that tunnel, what's going to happen? You have to have two people. Or he said, oh, you're right. And he convinced the people in New York to make sure that there was an opportunity. And so 10 people were being certified, and Phil said, oh, I want you to also be certified. And I'm now certified, and I'm happy to tell you I'm looking forward to my next dives. I can go down to 1,000 feet in 5 minutes. I can stay down there 10 hours, and I come back in 5 minutes. I have propulsion system, vertical and horizontal, which I command with my right foot going forward, right, left, right. With my left foot, I go up and down. And my hands are repeated, now much better than what you're going to see, every one of my fingers, repeated mechanically so I can take sample for the scientific community. And I have a high definition camera on my desk, on my top of my desk, on my top. And I have LED lights on my tummy. And I can be propelled underwater, and I can film, and I can take samples, and I'm like a kid. So I'm now certified, and I'm looking forward to that because we're going to be able to start to go and identify thousands and thousands of new species which we've never seen. How can you protect them? Let's never forget that we are all connected to that ocean, whether you live in New Orleans, or you live in Chicago, or you live on top of a mountain. We all connected to the ocean. We all depend on the ocean. Next time you drink a glass of water, you drink the ocean. And I'm French, originally anyway. I drink wine. 99% of it is the ocean. Whatever you drink, and every one of us is made out of the ocean, 60% or so. So we're all connected, and if you see that water, it all goes into the ocean, no matter what. So I'm so excited now we're going to be able to find new things. Can I have the next DVD, please? It's only 1 minute. I could show you.
Been a long time waiting for this.
Here is Phil.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Takes 1 week
Okay, my
to be
friend, take care.
certified.
I'll see you in the tank.
Yes.
So they put you in there. You're sitting like on a horse, by the way. You see the LED lights and the camera above my head. I'm ready. But I didn't know I was going to be an astronaut. But ultimately, they dumped me in that little tank, and they had a cameraman down there who was showing that, you know, and when you're in the ocean, you're free. You're not connected to the surface. And you can move your hands, and I told you these pinchers have been repeated with fingers now. Perfect. I mean, it's, I'm like a kid. I'm so excited. So that's where we're going to go from now on, and people are going to discover, and it's cheaper than submarines, and Phil Newton has built more submarines than anybody else, so, scientific submarines. We're living a very exciting thing. I'm mad at a French guy, because in Corsica, he bought one of those, $700,000, and now he can go where he couldn't go scuba diving before, deeper, to take all the red corals. He's getting thousands and tens of thousands of dollars of red corals. He's taking everything. I think he should be thrown in jail. And then I can get his. Maybe. No? What do you think? Well, I was telling you about the water. Water cycle is very critical. And we need to share that with as many people as we can anywhere on the planet. And I'm so happy to be able to do that on an ongoing basis. Could we have the next DVD, please? One water cycle. One water cycle. Everything is connected. 70% of the planet is covered by the ocean. It starts at the top of the mountains when it snows and kids plays and have fun. They're throwing pieces of ocean at each other. And ultimately that snow will melt as it goes into the streams, into the rivers,
into the lake. Everything is connected. One water system. Unfortunately, already near the source, we find garbage. It rains and goes right back into the ocean. And along the way, we have these great children playing in water. And even there, as they're having fun, they encounter garbage. We are responsible. This can change. And whether it is going into those little streams, those big rivers, what we don't see coming from our big industries, our automobiles, our industries of all kinds, it runs off and goes right into the ocean. Not only with what we see, like plastics, but all these things we don't see, which are part of the water system, where it affects everything. When we have catastrophes like what happened in the Gulf, we see the oil, we see the dispersant, which are affecting the marine life. And the dominant species, such as the beluga, naturally feed on the ocean floor. And then the dominant species that feed at the top of the food chain, the orcas, or the killer whales, they are the ones that are giving us all kinds of information. As these chemicals and heavy metals accumulate in the food chain, starting with the plankton, the foundations of all life, it goes all the way up to the big fish, the ones we catch, the ones we put in our plate. And the orcas are now, in certain parts of the world, having problems to reproduce, to have babies. It all starts at home. It all starts with our industries, with our decision makers, and those fish that we ultimately put in our plate. Many of them are affected by those chemicals such as the PBDEs, which are fire retardants, which we find in the air we breathe, in our computer, in our carpet, in children's clothes. It is unbelievable the effect that we have. So we decided to be tested. Here, a mother and her child, together with members of the government of California and ourselves at Ocean Futures. We went through 32 tests of chemicals and 2 of heavy metals. In this one case, the fire retardant, which is accumulated in the child of this young lady, is astronomical, shocking. This is what we're doing to ourselves. The water system is telling us, we're now finding out, thanks to science, that 25% of the belugas that are found dead on the east coast of Canada have cancer. This is shocking, and it can change because now we know. They're dying. We find them dead on the beaches. How can we protect what we don't understand? In the middle of the Pacific, we found debris from 52 different countries, I counted, and all these little pieces are brought back by the birds that want to feed their babies with the eggs that are deposited on anything that floats in the middle of the ocean. Thousands and thousands of birds will never fly. Those baby birds will die with anywhere between 8 and 12 pieces of plastic in their stomach. This can change. Every one of us can help. These children in our program Ambassador of the Environment are the decision makers of tomorrow. They know, they learn, they will make better decisions. They can communicate with their parents. They can tell our decision makers that there's only one water system. Next time you drink a glass of water, you're drinking the ocean. which evaporates and is being pushed by the wind on the top of the mountain and makes the snow perfectly clean, which will melt down and go back into the ocean.
I would like to emphasize the fact that there are now huge opportunities to capture all these runoffs before they go into the ocean. Whether it's a small stream or a large stream or a huge river like the Amazon where I was 2 weeks ago, which represent 20% of all the fresh water coming out of any land mass on the planet. 200 miles across at the entrance with an island in the middle which is as big as Switzerland. And with the scientists we've worked with, we can follow the water from the source of the Amazon in Peru on Mount Mismi, where I was with Dr. Richard Murphy in 1983-84. And when, with my dad, we produced, and his team, 5 or 6 hours of television programs for Ted Turner at the time. Well, those scientists are able now to follow the source of that water up in Peru, all the way down into the Atlantic Ocean and going up along the United States of America, all the way to England. One water system. We all connected to it. We all depend upon it. And now we know. We didn't know before. So we have these opportunities to create those treatment of runoffs of water, little industries, because it's not just the plastic that ultimately goes into the ocean, decomposes and affects all the life in the ocean, from the bottom of the ocean, whether it's the plankton, and then as it goes up, and you know, plankton is the largest migration of any species on the planet. They go up near the surface and down every night, non-stop. And those are at the source. They are the foundation of all life in the ocean. Absolutely fascinating. Well, they are affected by all the things we never talk about because our primary sense is vision. What about what we don't see? What about those chemicals? What about those heavy metals which we have tested ourselves and found? I had a lot of mercury in myself because the mercury has been used to capture gold in sand. Then they burn the mercury, the gold assemble and creates little pieces of gold which you collect. That's being done, was being done when I was in the Amazon in the 80s. It's being done right now in Peru, in the part of Peru. It's shocking what we're doing, and all of that ultimately, and I got loaded with mercury, which I didn't know at the time, thanks to my doctor, and I went on treatment, and I'm okay now. Well, kind of. But just to let you know that we have to focus on all those chemicals and heavy metals and capture them before they go into the ocean. We're talking about millions of new jobs on the planet. All over the planet we can have that installed and people are going to make a lot of money, and that's fine. But the ocean will be healthy. And we need to keep it healthy. And as I've learned again and again, thanks to all of you, it was amazing because every species is the capital. And diversity is synonymous of stability, so we can't lose species all the time because the system gets weaker and weaker and weaker. So we need to protect them, we need to protect the capital, and if we're going to collect anything like our fishermen, I grew up with fishermen, I know exactly, I saw them going out of business, by the way, and we need to take only the interest produced by the capital, and that's okay. But the demand is increasing as we add another 100 million people to the planet every year, so what have we done on land when we were hunting and gathering? We became farmers. We're not farming lions and jaguars. They probably taste very good. I've never tried, but we're farming herbivores. and omnivores. And farming carnivores is an absurdity. Salmon is an absurdity to farm salmon. You need between 8 and 12 pounds of wild fish, whatever is left into the ocean, to make 1 pound of salmon. Finito. But we can have these people learn to farm fish, the right kind of fish. Dr. Zohar in no, it's not Vancouver. Anyway, he's an amazing gentleman who's now growing different species of fish, and we're going to have people having fish farms all over the planet, and they're going to make a lot of money, and we're going to be able to eat fresh fish wherever we live, away from the ocean. And no more transportation, no more freezing it, no more emission of CO2. So that's going to help a lot. And when I was here, and I had to experience with my team what happened right off your coast, I was devastated. And I've never stopped being, and I want to share with you just a little piece of this before we go on to the future. Could we have the next DVD?
For more than 3 months, over 200 million gallons of oil spewed into the Gulf of Mexico, a mile underwater as the world watched images of billowing oil on live television 24/7, rendering us helpless witnesses. The leak has stopped, but the tragedy of the largest man-made ocean catastrophe outside war continues. Government estimates claim that 3/4 of the oil is gone and the worst is over. Many people and some scientists think the worst is about to begin as the consequences of the living system are revealed. Jean-Michel Cousteau and his Ocean Future Society team were among the first on site to dive the oil-stained Gulf waters and to confirm the movement underwater of oil mixed with dispersants. They were among the first to meet with parish presidents, working around the clock to get answers from BP and the Coast Guard. They saw the first oil ooze on shore. The team recorded the faces of this early event: the fishermen, pelicans, dolphins, crabs, turtles, shop owners, and the blackened marshes and beaches. But what is the bigger picture? Where is their hope and how soon? Where have these massive amounts of oil and dispersants gone? And most importantly, what have we learned? In a proposed hour-long special program, Jean-Michel Cousteau and his team will investigate the wildlife, the people, the politics, and the region's industries to answer the questions that we all want to know. Following the special program, Jean-Michel Cousteau will present monthly investigative reports on the status of the Gulf. The broken well has stopped spilling, but we need to monitor the region to ensure that all is being done to aid in its recovery. Join Jean-Michel Cousteau and his team as they investigate the Gulf.
Oh my God. Just to let you know that that has affected me very, very profoundly. I've met many of the people who had lost their jobs as fishermen and were helping to pick up all this garbage in the ocean, and those people got very sick, and some of them still are sick today. This is what we're doing to ourselves by not knowing, and I believe that we have opportunities to stop doing these kind of mistakes. And I'm happy to say also, and sorry, that I've been connected with many scientists, and particularly for a long time, with people who are involved with marine mammals, and particularly these dolphins, who at this time when the catastrophe took place were giving birth to their babies. who were breastfeeding their mothers in the dispersant and the oil. This has to change. We can do it. We will do it. We are doing it. And thanks to young people who are going to be the decision makers of tomorrow, we'll make much, much better decisions we have made. We're learning from our mistakes. And I think we're heading in a very, very exciting time. What I'd like to do now is to make a statement about the climate change. Unfortunately, some decision makers don't believe that climate change is a reality. It is a reality. I've experienced a lot of it in my 80 years of life and 73 years of scuba diving, going to many places over and over and over. And I can tell you, it's not getting better. But we're learning more and more about the mistakes that we've made and how we can change that. And that's why I will never stop. And I have a goal, which is very simple. I want to celebrate 100 years of scuba diving because I love to be underwater in the salt, because that's where, fishermen protect their sardines by putting them in salt. So that's why I dive. And I will never stop until I'm 107. Then I'll get switched off. And a little piece of me will go where my mother is in front of Monaco, where my brother is in the Atlantic Ocean, where my father is, and I want to be in the Pacific. So there's a plan for my children. But the climate change is a real issue, and as a real issue, I'd like to share with you what we've put together. Thank you for your help. People all across the earth are experiencing the effects of climate change. Our weather is more extreme. Storms are getting stronger and more destructive. There are more frequent floods, larger hurricanes, bigger forest fires, increased coastal erosion, and the sea level is rising. The science is certain. Humans have accelerated rising global temperatures through the burning of fossil fuels to generate electricity, drive our cars, and heat our homes. These processes release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere that trap heat and cause our global temperature to rise. 2016 was the hottest year ever recorded. The 12 warmest years on record have all occurred since 1998. Carbon dioxide levels are higher today than at any time during the last 800,000 years. In Alaska, people shared with me the changes they are seeing.
We've seen a lot of change as far as the ocean, the retreat of the main ice pack and the main ice pack breaking up, and we're facing some erosion problems due to the rising temperature of the ocean.
Oh, everybody talks about global warming, but up here on the edge, boy, you can really see it. It's been a dramatic change in the last decade.
We're not seeing the ice year-round like we used to. So I believe the ice is melting.
You remember the ice all year long here?
Oh, yeah, I remember when I was a kid, the ice being up here all year round. We would lose the ice maybe for 2 or 3 months out of the year, and the ice would come back. But there's a few times where maybe the past 5 years, we've had open water all year round.
In early 2016, the strongest tropical cyclone in the southern hemisphere on record made landfall on islands in the Pacific with winds up to 190 miles an hour that killed many people and damaged tens of thousands of homes and caused billions of dollars in damages. NASA has reported that climate change contributed to the intensity of this cyclone. Rising sea levels means that our shorelines are eroding and that there will be more flooding, and many islanders will need to relocate to a new land once their islands are submerged. If our actions harm others, we must change our lifestyles to slow the effects of climate change. World leaders and prominent thinkers agree we all need to act now.
And so we have to make a concerted effort to put in place the different mechanisms that will help us to reach our objectives, and that we can limit at least the rise in temperatures to a reasonable level.
We have to protect this world, and we have a responsibility to hand this world over to the next generation, to our children and grandchildren, in better shape than we found it. So let's get our act together, everyone, and work together in order to improve our environment and to reduce greenhouse gases and to protect our future.
I mean, time is up. So therefore, my message is, let's inspire young people, first and foremost. I agree. To be radical thinkers, to go completely out of the box, to imagine what your parents could not even imagine. Go beyond the dreams of your parents. And if we give our children that degree of freedom, children, young at heart, young in age, but if you give the children of this earth the freedom to think so beyond everything, then I believe very quickly we'll have results.
Many of us here today is in recognition that the threat from climate change is real, urgent, serious, and is growing overnight. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is real. It is not a mere dream. Are you ready to face life without Earth? Have you contemplated what will happen if we ignore this reality? This nightmare? That is the core reason of us being here. It's time to take action as our theme depicts. Leadership, action, and COP23. Again, leadership, action, and COP23.
We must continue to invest in clean, renewable energy that does not emit carbon dioxide. And we need to create living shorelines that can help reduce flooding caused by climate change and rising seas. Climate change is the most critical issue humanity has ever faced. Future generations will either thank us or they will be very angry if we do not act fast enough to solve this imminent threat. Well, I, of course, believe that we are now in a position where we can make discoveries and share with the public more and more in schools and the general public with the equipment that now has been created. Thanks to my colleagues, we are now able to go diving and observe the behavior of creatures which I could never see with the naked eye. And it's absolutely fascinating to approach tiny little creatures and see how they behave in slow motion as we focus on their actions. We have just finished a motion pictures, 85 minutes in 3D, which is going to be distributed all over the world, is in the process. I'm going to go to Italy for the opening, and I will be in China very soon for the opening. I don't know when it's going to be in the US. It's called Wonders of the Sea. Wonders of the Sea is, for me, I'm like a kid watching what we've shot. It took us over 3 years to film and put that together. But I'm sorry you won't see it in 3D because we don't have the equipment to see it in 3D. And I only have a few minutes, 3 minutes or so. But just to give you an idea of what we're going to be able to see. I hope you enjoy it. Here's Wonders of the Sea. Could we have the next DVD, please? Obviously, this was a tease, and I hope if you find out about when the show will air, you will go. I've watched it. I love it. I'm not in charge of distribution, otherwise I could tell you more specifically when it's going to be shown, but it's in the process right now. And I wanted you to see that, yes, we're going to discover species, we're going to understand what we depend upon, we're going to do a much better job than we have done in the past, thanks to science, thanks to scientists, thanks to the communication revolution that we're living today, where we can communicate with anybody on the planet way beyond the borders, which is a thing of the past. And I want just you to have a little bit of fun. And I want to show you what is very important for you, because you live here, and I'm sure sometimes you go to the beach and you enjoy yourselves. So I want to share that with you. Could we have the next DVD, please? It's all short. Well, here you are. It could be anywhere on the planet, and you're on beautiful white sandy beaches. And you're playing with your family, and where is that white sandy beach coming from? Of course, big waves is pushing it, but you have to look at parrotfish, for example, underwater, and they're looking for algae on dead coral, and they scrap a little bit of the calcium carbonate which they don't like. And ultimately, when they have too much in their mouth, what do? Well, they swim away and they decide, okay, enough is enough, and they get rid of it. And it comes down, goes to the bottom of the ocean floor, and there, oh yeah, what are these? Oh God, they say, oh, what came from the parrot fish is not as clean as, so they're eating, and what comes out from their behind, ultimately, when there is a wave, well, where is it going to go? Well, it's going to go on these beautiful white sandy beaches. So next time you go to a beach, you're laying on parrotfish poop. We're all connected. Don't forget that. And I've had a story not very long ago in Baja California. I was observing a fish that was protecting its nest, and I was there, and I want to show you what happened. Could we have the next DVD, please? And that will be my last one. So I'm going with my friend, and he's a cameraman, and I wanted him to film me looking at that fish. And here he is. He's protecting his nest, and I was there, and I'm approaching him. And there's a sea lion that is around us, and the sea lion is coming and is bugging me. What did I do? Leave me alone. Okay, go away. And then he's coming, and I was mad because I thought it was a beautiful female, and she was bugging me, and she was mad at me, and ultimately she dumped me and she swam away. And she fell in love with our cameraman. And she spent a long time, and he was filming himself with her. That really pissed me off. But it was no big deal because I realized it was a male. It's okay, Jim. You can have a good time with him. These are some of the stories that happen, and I cannot throw it away. We have to share it with people, so we're not too serious. Now, I was told that I'm here for another 2 hours, but I know that we have just a few minutes to answer some questions. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
What's your favorite adventure that you've ever been on?
My favorite what?
Adventure that you've ever been on.
The next one. I really, one of my favorite places on the planet is Fiji. And it's not just because we have now access to a resort over there, which is using my name. I'm a not-for-profit company, so they're using the name as long as they do environmentally the right thing, which my colleague, Dr. Richard Murphy and Holly Lohais, make sure it happens, and the also education. And we have a program called, well, there are many names, but Ambassador of the Environment over there, which we have in several hotels in different parts of the world, and it's very exciting on Catalina and whatnot. And we're going to have a new one in Santa Barbara, and there's one in Baja California coming up, and so on. We're very excited to be able to share that with young people. And we literally fell in love with Fijians. They're the nicest human beings on the planet. They were never harassed until very recently by us, by, the people from New Zealand, Australia, and now China, and Japan, and Americans, of course. And we're trying to help the whole country to preserve their culture. It's very fascinating. We learn a lot, so it's my favorite place, and I go there 2 or 3 times a year. I'll be there in the big conference in next month. So it's a very exciting place. I love Papua New Guinea, which is just at the north side of it. But I also love Southern California because kelp forest, 70 feet tall. And when you swim in the kelp forest, it's like being a bird in Sequoia Park. I mean, it's, oh God, it's fascinating. And I love to go there when the weather is, nice, and often it's very nice, and visibility also. And we also dive at night, because at night you see some sharks that rest. They're sitting down, and they are females. Usually they're protecting their time for giving birth. And a lot of lobsters. You don't see lobsters during the day, but at night, they're coming out, and we can see them, and we don't touch them. And we take young people to do that. And Dr. Richard Murphy was amazing. He takes the kids out there with flashlights, but he told the parents, your kids are going to go and look at what's there. But he didn't tell the parents, but he told the kids at some point to turn off your flashlight so you can see the bioluminescence in the water, which they do. And the parents are on the beach and say, "Where are my children? I don't know where they are, lost them." It's so funny to see the kids come back and tell their parents what they saw. So we had a lot of great time, and I love Southern California and the kelp forest. Madame. I know you know.
Monsieur Cousteau, je voulais vous demander, est-ce que vous avez eu peur quand vous êtes descendu dans cette machine pour 1000 mètres? C'était
1000 pieds, 300 mètres.
I asked Mr. Cousteau if he got scared when he got in the machine to go 1,000 feet under the water. Was that scary?
What do I do? Scared? No.
No?
No, I'm very comfortable. You're sitting like on a horse, and no.
And I had the pleasure of taking your daughter to visit the French Quarter when she visited Tulane.
Well, I'm glad you did, and she's wonderful. I just spoke to her today. That's right. You're very kind, and she's going to present a film at the Cannes Film Festival. She spent a lot of time in the Amazon, and she's in the process of finishing a 1 hour, or maybe a 1 hour special, and I'll be there also. Of course, I want to see how other people approach it. Yeah, and she'll probably be talking business, and I'll take care of my grandchild. Any other questions? Yes? I'm sorry, I'm deaf.
Like advice on what to do when you talk to people who don't believe in climate change?
I sit down and I try to reach their hearts, and there are quite a few people, and often it works. And I mentioned President Bush, who at the time that was not an issue, but I had the pleasure of being invited at the White House to show a film on the northwestern Hawaiian island, which was a 2-hour special, and I was sitting next to Mrs. Bush, and she asked me questions non-stop. And I can tell you, I'm sure, that night when they went to bed and he was putting his pajamas on, she probably told him, "W, you better do something about this." So I gave her a lot of credit. Now, you don't criticize people. That doesn't help. They create a defense system. You try to have, an opportunity to share information. They have families, they have children, they care, but their obligation often are now. Well, and I've done that with many people, including the President Zedillo in Mexico, to protect the place where the gray whales go to give birth, to mate, to reproduce, and where there are thousands of Mexicans who are making a living by being there. And there was an industry that wanted to build a desalination plant right there, that was the wrong place. And I went to see President Zedillo, and ultimately told that, I explained to him, and he's a diver, by the way, and I said, you know, maybe they can go somewhere else. And he said, I'll take care of that. And he asked them to go somewhere else. He didn't tell them not to do it. They said, but not there. And today, the whales are still coming, giving birth. And it's a beautiful place. So reaching the hearts of people is, most of the time works, not always, but you can try 2, 3 times if you can. And I do that a lot. And I'm prepared to do it with a lot of people, particularly right now. Yes, madam.
Some of the people, some of the scientists have said that the ocean is becoming too acidic,
Yes.
too fast in order to save it.
Yes.
If we were to have a priority of what we need to do as far as steps with legal action policies, what would your priorities be?
Well, it's literally acidification, emission of CO2, which ultimately releases in the ocean. Let's not forget that every other breath of air you take is coming from the ocean, wherever you live. It doesn't matter. And the acidification is affecting the coral to build itself, or some shell creatures to make the shells. And that is a real problem, because now in Florida, for example, 25% or maybe more of the coral reefs are dead because of the acidification and the water temperature of the ocean due to the emission of CO2, and which constitute to the rising of the ocean. And those reefs which are protecting the coastline, or the other plants, which are along the coast, which unfortunately people cut all the time, are no longer there. A third of Florida is going to disappear. We don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure that the corals can grow back. And there are places where the right thing has been done and the corals are coming back. But we've lost quite a bit on the planet today. And the people along the coastline are suffering, and many people are living on the islands in the Caribbean have suffered still today. They have no electricity, or they have no, their house has been demolished by waves. And so education is critical. And I think with the consequences which will continue, we can slowly diminish that and ultimately do what needs to be done to make sure that our species will be able to stabilize and ultimately continue to have the privilege that we have, which is to enjoy being on this beautiful place. We can't go somewhere else. We're not prepared. It's not going to happen. And I became an architect. I'm a licensed architect in the European Union because I wanted to build cities underwater. It's my father's fault, you know. He started building underwater habitats where I went to see my friends who lived in there for a week or more. And I realized we're not made to live underwater. So that's not going to happen. We're stuck on land. But I wanted to be an architect. I'm a licensed architect, and I went and built schools in Madagascar because at the time I had to do my military service for France. And I built 6 schools, or I designed and supervised the construction, and several other structures. And now I'm very much involved in ship construction. And I've designed with a friend of mine the ship for tomorrow. We're looking for the investors, but it's a ship that is going to allow to be anywhere on the planet, on the ocean, and have our divers underwater communicate to the ship via satellite, anybody, in your cell phone, in your computer, at home, anywhere on the planet, and ask us questions underwater. And we'll be able to do that. We've done that before on cruise ships with people who are in a room like this, and they can see us on the screen and can ask us questions, and we can answer the questions. So now every human being on the planet is going to be connected to the ocean one way or the other, because before it was very expensive. Now the prices have gone down, down, down to communicate. So we're going to be able to do that. So I'm designing that ship, and there's some friends in Europe who are interested, and I'm a not-for-profit organization, so I have to find people who are interested and to be able to do those things happen. That's what we've done in the past. But it's a very exciting time, very exciting time. You know, our mission, and I'm going to shut up because I know you're going to kick me out. Oh yeah, you're going to kick me out. Our mission at Ocean Future Society, which I created to honor my father, is if you protect the ocean, you protect yourself. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're not just clapping for one outstanding scientist and educator. We're clapping for a family, a tradition, and a whole movement that so few of us experience. Let me ask, how many of you scuba? That's a significant amount. How many, after hearing Jean-Michel scuba, want to scuba? Okay? Okay? But I wanted to end this on a slightly different note, of hope, really. So much of Jean-Michel goes to the heart and goes to children. And there's been a remarkable development this week in law, which has played right off of that. It's sort of like the Parkland school shooting revolution that hit the Florida legislature this last week. The most audacious environmental lawsuit, I think, in history has been raised by a group of children on behalf of children and the children yet unborn to their right to a future planet that's not ruined by climate change, against the United States government for doing just the opposite. The claim is that it's unconstitutional. It's a violation of their due process rights. Think of that. And by casting this case, as it rightly should be, with the children, they've played right into the Jacques and Jean-Michel Cousteau playbook of you reach it to the hearts. We're really not trying to reach Donald Trump's heart, but we are trying to reach, they are trying to reach the hearts of America through the children. So not only is the legal theory audacious, but the strategy is audacious. Just this last week, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals refused the government's motion to dismiss the case as trivial and no standing and you're too early and you're too late and all the other stuff. It said, no, let the trial go forward. Let the trial go forward. So here is a harmony of environmental law and environmental childrenism. And that case could do more to save the oceans. After all, that's why they're acidifying, and that's why so much else is happening, than anything else that's on the boards. That's an amazing phenomenon. So I want you to leave with this spark of hope in your heads. Who knows how it'll come out ultimately, but think of the educational power of this suit. The number of media outlets and others that have picked it up, all in the name of the children. Cool. Thanks very much. The long-awaited refreshments are right outside the door and in the multipurpose room. There's a patio outside. It should be delightful. Look forward to seeing you there. Bye-bye.